If you can do that now, that would be great. Where are we? Fareham, Barton-on-Sea, Leon-Solent, Winchester. Lovely spot, Barton-on-Sea. Romsey, Southampton. Yeah, we're all pretty au fait with the chat function. That's great. So, with housekeeping out of the way, I'd like to introduce Ross McNally, CEO and Executive Chair of the Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, to formally open the session. So, over to you, sir.
Thanks very much, Rob. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Chamber of Solutions for the first time in partnership with the New Forest Business Partnership. This is a fantastic opportunity to explore your needs as a business as we move into a net zero economy. Now, I say as we move into it because it's not really a choice. This is what is happening. This is the direction of travel of the world. And businesses, yes, they do need to adjust, but equally they need to pivot their business as an opportunity to try and find a way in which their business is suited, their business fits with this new shape of the economic landscape. The landscape addresses all parts. It's not something which, like many business people over the past few decades have been looking towards, which is just efficiency, green commitments. This is a global change. It affects all people. It affects intergenerational justice. It affects nature's diversity. It's about conserving our resources. And yes, it is, of course, evidence-based. So we are all part of the solution, and we're part of an opportunity for our businesses to really take forward some challenging steps to turn this world into the place that we want it to be. And there can be no better time than now. When you think this unprecedented and unexpected pandemic has allowed us as businesses to look at our shape and our direction of travel and think how we need to pivot, well, I would say this is the best time to think about pivoting fully towards participating fully in the green economy. And so operating effectively within a net zero environment does provide challenges, but today is about innovation and today is about opportunity. You're going to be hearing about place, of course, very important in the New Forest, but you're also going to hear about business models, business plans, and hopefully how to access the kind of support you need. So most importantly, we want to hear from you because you're the ones running the businesses, you're the ones with the challenges. Please bring them to this session. We've got a very select and very talented speaker panel, but we've also got quite a select number of businesses from a specific area, and whether that be Hampshire, whether that be the New Forest, you share common goals and common needs. So please come forward with your ideas, with your challenges, and let's get a discussion rolling. This is a Chamber of Solutions, and as such, it's a community of practice. It's your community of practice, and we hope that you make the most of it. As I say, we're in partnership today with the New Forest Business Partnership, but we mustn't forget our old friends. We're also supported and have been throughout the whole of the year with Chamber of Solutions by Solent LEP, Enterprise M3 and Shaping Portsmouth. And so they have been very strong and powerful in supporting our programme. And of course, Mission Performance, who chairs and helps us to operate these highly successful events. That's all from me. I'll be very much in the background. We'll be sharing things on chat, and please do so yourself. Bring your questions forward, place them on chat or raise your hand, and Rob will ensure that you're given the opportunity. But first and foremost, I'd like to invite Matthew Lawson, representing New Forest Business Partnership, to provide a welcome and introduce himself. Matthew.
Thanks, Ross. A very good morning to everyone from the New Forest, and thank you so much for the partnership that's brought this very important and significant event to New Forest businesses today. It's my pleasure and privilege to chair the New Forest Business Partnership, which represents the 9,000 businesses in the New Forest. And that number always surprises people. Everyone thinks of the forest as populated by trees and ponies, but actually we're populated by a lot of micros, smalls, and indeed all the way up to a business you may have heard of called ExxonMobil, which is our largest business in the New Forest. An interesting contradiction, perhaps. We are based in the New Forest, and we're very fortunate that many of the businesses are based in the New Forest National Park. And so with the help of Paul Walton, who's on the panel today, who's a part of our advisory group, we've been trying to focus in our board meetings, in our advisory group meetings, on issues like green recovery, clean growth, natural capital. Firstly, what do these words mean? Because many business owners are grappling with that. But then what does it mean for my business? Now, my business is in hospitality. I have a hotel in Brockenhurst. I have a yacht sailing business on the Solent. So for me, the New Forest National Park is the perfect home. But I need to make sure that there is a partnership in that between my needs as a business and my customers coming, but also with the needs of the location in which we're set. So it's a really good timing to start thinking about how we can connect up the need for understanding about these important issues with how to apply it, particularly when you are a small or a micro business. I don't have a department here to apply these things. It's down to me. And so it's really important that we start this process and indeed continue this process, and I'm sure we will over the years to come. So thank you so much for bringing this together. Thanks for joining us. I recognize quite a few names on the list from New Forest events that we've had, and I look forward to meeting more of you throughout the call, and indeed hoping that we can set an agenda for further discussions, which Paul and I will continue and take forward. So back to Rob. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Ross. A little bit of an introduction to Mission Performance Limited. We're a local business based in Lyon, Solent. We've been going for 20 years. We've been working globally, helping leaders and teams perform to their true potential, running premium training and development services all over the world and also locally. We help them to lead, to coach, communicate, and minimize risk in their operations. And we're, as a small business owner, we are very much looking for opportunities to become more sustainable, more green, not because it's a nice thing to do, because we think it's absolutely essential. So whilst I'm chairing this, I've also got an interest in the discussions as well. I'll try and stay out of them, but I'm here to learn as much as you are. So thank you very much for coming once again. I'm now going to introduce or hand over to Richard, who will be our first panelist, to introduce him and his subject. Richard, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Morning, everybody. Thanks, Rob, for the introduction. I'm going to show you some slides. I've been given 5 minutes, so I'm going to rattle through them. So please bear with me while I share my screen. And if you could just shout out that you can actually see these when they do start. Can you see those okay?
Just loading now. Yes, good.
You can see them. Okay, so next 5 minutes. Richard Hall, I'm the Business Development Manager at Green Tech South. Title of my presentation is Green Tech South and the Chamber of Solutions, which is not the name of the next Harry Potter film, but absolutely delighted to be here today, especially as I think we all love the New Forest. So, who are Green Tech South? We're based in the University of Portsmouth. We do lots of events. We work very, very closely with SMEs in helping them bring green, low carbon, clean solutions to the marketplace. We've been around for a while. 2012 is when we started working, so I've been heavily involved with this organization since then. This timeline's on our website, so I'm not going to go through it, but the most important thing there is that in 2019, we secured over £10 million from Research England, European Union and other places to help small, medium-sized enterprises develop clean growth solutions and products. So what is green innovation? It's any new idea or an adaptation of an existing product, service or process that reduces energy use or creates renewable energy, basically stops carbon emissions. Most of the big projects have been out there now, so tidal turbines, wind turbines, solar PV, etc. So a lot of the work now is actually refining it using battery storage, etc. We also look very, very closely at the reduction of plastic waste, pollutants, etc., etc. So essentially clean growth, which is why I'm wearing my clean growth t-shirt today. So why is green innovation important? Well, it's the law, basically. We've got COP26 coming up in Glasgow in November. All the governments of the world now are aligned with the essential fact of reducing carbon emissions. 2050, we're going to be completely zero carbon economy. Gas central heating is being phased out in 4 years time. Electric vehicles will be the norm from 2030, etc. So it's not something that can be avoided. And Ross summed it up very nicely, saying that it's in all of our interests, business, individuals, society, to make this happen. So what do we do at GreenTech South? We provide grants, and the reason I'm going to talk about these, I'm just going to show you a few case studies just to give you a flavour of what we can do. And I think this could well be of interest to Matthew and to you as well, Rob. Firstly, on the innovation side, we're working with companies like PowerQuad who are developing battery storage solutions. You would think that by now battery storage is the norm everywhere, but trying to get battery storage that takes energy from the grid and also from renewables such as solar is not easy. So they've developed a standalone device that can fit into any home or business. We gave them a grant to help them develop this. We're also working with a company called Solar Sidewalks, who are putting solar panels into a stretch of land just next to the University of Portsmouth, which will then be fed straight into battery storage solution at the university. The section that you can see is on the left there. It looks like it might be quite shady, but I'm advised that the fence on the left will come down. So testing that and seeing how well it works is one of our projects. But we also work with companies like Airhead, who've developed a pollution-free mask for cyclists. 3 bankers there on the right who were fed up of cycling into the middle of London and ending up with very, very poor airwaves. So they've developed a very, very effective pollution mask. Came out just before the pandemic struck. So when they went to run a crowdfunding source, instead of the £40,000 they were hoping to run, they actually raised over £400,000. So we're working closely with them on taking this product closer to market. We also work on helping companies reduce the plastic in their products. So here we've got Baby Cup, who a very entrepreneurial young lady that made a cup of babies to feed on. We're helping to make it fully recyclable and also biodegradable. So even though people talk about which sector are you in, I think that clean growth covers every sector. So we've gone from baby cups to air masks to face masks to basically everything in between. We also work with quite a few software companies who are developing ways of making machines work smoother, use less energy, emit less emissions, etc. So we do lots of support for companies. There's a few examples there, from some highly tech pyrolysis biochar machines all the way to putting panels on the outside of windows which deflect the sun's rays, but you still get perfect view from inside the building. Very important in this day when we need windows to be open to get air circulating inside offices and homes. They're working, this company, Smart Lubra, have actually installed their panels on an eco house at the University of Portsmouth, where we're based. So we can use the eco house for testing different products just to see how effective they are, but also to see what issues that we will be challenging them as they develop a new product. The most important thing for some of you today, certainly for Matthew and Rob, is the energy efficiency grants that we provide as well. These are funded at 36% of a project's cost, and you've got some examples there. Bottom left is probably the one that's most popular. EV charging points, and also supporting the purchase of electric vehicles or electric fleets for a business. But there's quite a few things there. The big winner is LED lighting, but you've also got solar power, insulation, voltage optimization, and ground source heat pumps and air source heat pumps. Quick example of a company, Morgan Furniture installed £20,000 worth of LED lighting. We gave them £7,200 from one of our energy efficiency grants, which is called Emphasize. reducing the payback on this investment down to 1.2 years, so 14 months, and they've got all their money back on that. The saving on CO2 emissions as well is pretty impressive. They're saving 60 tonnes per annum on that. So a good example. And what we would like to do is work with lots more companies in the New Forest in helping you to install some of this energy saving kit. So for example, on the Isle of Wight, they're being very entrepreneurial there. They've got all their hotels and guest houses together, and they're putting in bids for our fund in order to install charging points, EV charging points, therefore becoming a greener island, attracting more people with EV, reducing their emissions, and becoming a green centre. And I'd love to do something similar with the New Forest. So with our other funding schemes, we can also do energy efficiency audits all the way through to the research and development grants. But it's not just the grants that we do. We also help companies find testing sites and academic resources to just show that there is actually a market for it, or some of the issues that will come up in developing it. So anything basically that we can do to help, we will get involved with the business. There is one big issue in our region, and that's the shortage of skills. So for example, connecting EVs to the grid, hydrogen power, which is the next big thing, smart metering, energy management, air ground source heat pumps, solar PV, battery storage. There seems to be a gap in the infrastructure and the supply chain of individuals and people that can come along and install this. The technologies have all been developed. They're still being refined, some of them, but actually finding the right people to come along and make it fit or make it work better is a struggle. And I'm pleased to see that on our call today, we actually have got a gentleman who's trying to set up a South Coast Energy Hub and provide a training solution so that people can actually come along and learn how to set up a charging point, or what problems will be encountered with ground source heat pumps. And I'm sure that we'll take some questions later on, and I can talk a little bit more about that. Some useful links there. I'm sure you'll get all these slides afterwards from the Chamber. My advice really would be is make sure, if you're not a member of the Chamber, do become a member. Also join up with Green Tech South, because then you'll get advice of all the events that we run, all the support that we run, all the case studies that we do, and the funding. I talked about £10 million being come into the organisation to help businesses. That's not going to go away. There'll be more coming down from government. There's another fund called Locase, which again will be supporting companies in providing energy saving kits. So that's it from me. That was a quick rattle through. I'll stop sharing now and pass you back to Rob.
Thank you very much, Richard. Frantically scribbling notes as you were talking there. So many opportunities. I'm now going to turn to Paul. Please, Paul, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Rob, and good morning, everybody. I too am going to try to share the screen and set up a few PowerPoint slides. So hopefully it won't be death by PowerPoint, but I will try and whiz through them. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see. Just
see the
perfect. We've got presenter view, Paul, if you don't mind, or just switch your display settings.
Okay. Is that better?
Yep, perfect.
Excellent. Okay, so thanks everybody and good morning. And it's really great actually to be on a sort of business orientated call. As Matthew said in his introduction, we're the National Park Authority, are part of the New Forest Business Partnership and have been for some time. But in all that time, I think there is a sense that in some cases, the national park is regarded as a constraint to growth, and sort of the natural environment of the area might be a constraint to growth. And I think as we move into this changing area of work and the need to get to net zero by 2050, I think we can see that the natural environment is actually part of the solution to that getting to net zero, and we need to work in partnership with business. And the national park and the natural environment should not be necessarily a constraint to growth, but actually a means by which growth will be allowed to take place. So I won't talk for long, but it doesn't seem quite possible, but it was barely a year ago that in 2019 that global climate protests were all over the news. That's what everybody was talking about. Greta Thunberg was very much front and center, and the UK saw its largest climate change protest on the 19th of September 2019. Then of course coronavirus happened, and the climate change agenda has slipped from news headlines at least, but in terms of government action, there is still plenty going on. And in November 2020, the government introduced their 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution. And of course, as was mentioned earlier, the UN Climate Change Conference, COP26, will be hosted in Scotland in November. So there was already a lot of work going on to the run into that particular event, and no doubt climate change issues will continue to be coming to the fore. The 10-point plan, yes, a national one. You can see the 10 points on the side of the slide there. And in particular, I would just want to bring you to your attention the fact that protecting the natural environment is seen as a key element of this green industrial revolution. And of course, to get to net zero, creating the balance between the amount of greenhouse gas emissions produced and the amount that's removed from the atmosphere, the natural environment is going to be one of the most important and effective solutions for capturing and sequestering carbon in the longer term. And so very much in our area, the national park will be a key factor of that. Just a few sort of introductions to the national park if people aren't familiar with it. But as I say, the natural environment is a key feature, not just of the New Forest, but the wider area, the Solent, going up in Hampshire to the South Downs National Park. We have a biosphere on the Isle of Wight. There's areas of outstanding natural beauty to the west in Dorset, and one of the largest natural or national nature reserves in Purbeck. So the whole area is very much one of quality coastline, of quality environment. And in thinking about the environment in terms of climate change and business and net zero, we need to think about the environment not necessarily just as somewhere that happens out there or away or somewhere that you visit at the weekend. It's thinking about the services that that natural environment provides. And we talk about that in terms of its natural capital, the role of the essential services that the natural environment provides, whether that's carbon dioxide sequestration and carbon storage, or water flow regulation, pollination, protection from soil erosion. And those services that are provided by the natural environment underpin those benefits that we as a society appreciate, such as clean air and water, reduction in flood risk, and the contribution that the environment makes to physical and mental well-being. And that in particular, that last bit has obviously been highlighted through the coronavirus pandemic, and many people have sought the restorative effects of getting closer to nature and very much coming to places like the New Forest National Park for some of that restoration. But in terms of investing in natural capital and in nature-based solutions, that's seen as a critical requirement. It will require more investment in heathland, in wetland restoration, in tree planting, in salt marsh creation. All of those areas that of the natural environment are particularly important in terms of carbon sequestration. All of those in terms of our immediate environment are areas that people need to start thinking about in ways that will provide opportunities for offsetting, perhaps, for investment. We have organizations, large multinational organizations coming to us asking how they might be able to invest in activity in the national park, partly to offset their carbon emissions, but partly to think about how they might innovate in some of the work that they're doing. And agriculture and land-based industries will of course need to innovate to reduce and remove the carbon emissions from their supply chains and their operations. So all of that around how not just we might be able to green business, but how business will be able to further green the environment. And it's not just about the agricultural sector. We're working with partners looking particularly in areas like the water side, where there are areas of future opportunities for development, particularly at Fawley Waterside and ABP. And we're working with those companies to develop a natural capital baseline for them to build their evidence base, to identify what the areas of land that they own and are looking to develop, how that contributes to overall natural capital provision, whether their land accelerates water shedding, for example, and leading to nitrate influx into the Southampton water, whether there's opportunities when they're looking to develop their land to actually improve natural habitats, to think about things like sea level rise and how that will begin to impact on the areas that they own close to the coastline. So we're working directly with them now to develop natural capital baselines, which will enable them to, hopefully as they develop, to show that they will actually be adding to that net zero performance. But we're also looking to work with smaller businesses, and particularly businesses that might be on this particular call. And Richard had sort of gone through a number of areas around energy, renewable energy provision and so on that can help businesses. But we're also looking at opportunities for water saving measures, enhancing natural water cycles, looking at energy in terms of active travel. How can people either commute less or maybe use the bike more or use public transport more? And in particular in materials, how perhaps your business uses a lot of materials, maybe in packaging. How can you go from plastic to more plant-based materials? And how can you reduce waste in your business operations? We're working at the policy level with the Partnership for South Hampshire. So a number of local authorities from Portsmouth right over to Southampton in the New Forest, developing at that policy level what's being termed as a green print for our area. And this has been agreed by the Partnership for South Hampshire and will now be looked at by all their individual local authorities. Net zero with nature at the head of that list there, but also the opportunities for the natural environment to provide a natural health service. Some of the, how people say, how will this all be paid for? Some of the benefits that will come from net zero will be as a consequence of improving physical and mental health, reducing that public expenditure on the NHS in the future. So it's about creating great places through quality in design and build, and also, as Richard said, creating a centre of excellence in green skills and jobs. And we would very much like for the National Park Authority and our partners to be part of that debate, to work with you as businesses to try and identify how, particularly if you're in the land-based sector, but other sectors as well within the visitor economy in particular, how we can work together to build a future workforce that can contribute to that zero carbon economy and still have a thriving and effective and useful place to live and create a world-class environment and a world-class economy together. And that's hopefully where we might lead the discussion in a moment, Rob. So back to you. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Paul. So as a business owner, I've been again sort of scribbling more notes down. I know our audience will probably have questions, so please put those in the chat function, and we'll make sure that they get aired. Or if you want to open your mic up and video up, address the panel directly. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions, if I may, and get the ball rolling. So as a business that pre-COVID used to fly all over the world, not me personally, but our team, racking up tons of carbon. The most recent, the last 11 months have proven to us that we can actually deliver our services in a as effective way, but using Zoom and Teams and other online mechanisms. we're based down in Lyon, the Solent. I'm just looking at it from a from a selfishly business owner perspective, for somebody that's delivering services nationally and globally. If I gave you the challenge and the opportunity of helping us as a business, local business that wanted to make everything that we're talking about part of our culture, not necessarily part of the bureaucracy, and how we could really embrace the green economy to help grow our business, where would I start? What advice would you give me as a business owner, and how we could make that shift to more of a, embedding everything we're talking about into our operating rhythm, if you like? Where would one start, Richard? Sort of put you on.
Well, always best to start by. Sorry, my unmute. Yes, I am. Always best to start by looking at benchmarking what you've got at the moment, which is why when we set up our project, which is called Emphasize, we decided that the best thing to do is actually provide energy efficiency audits for free to SMEs. So we've got about 135 to 150 of those. In that way, any company can then benchmark exactly what they're doing at the moment, and then you can see where the quick wins are, where the low-hanging fruit is, et cetera, et cetera. But then also looking at things like behavior change, buying EVs, which is the best EV to get, et cetera. So some of the work that we've done so far has been, there's a pizza delivery company in Brighton that's moved completely away from diesel vans to electric bikes. So you get your pizza delivered by somebody whizzing up to your house and throwing the pizza through the front door. So it's anything like that, but you need to know what you're doing at the moment so that you can measure it. If you don't have a benchmark, then how can you celebrate success?
Sure.
The other thing I'd say is that the big thing, and I know that this happened about 10 years ago. There was a hotel in the New Forest. I won't mention its name because it might upset Matthew, but they started this and their staff thought they were just crazy, green, tree-hugging hippie types. But after working together as a team and all contributing ideas, they source all their food from within 5 to 10 miles and everybody bought into it. So it's a way of getting teams working, staff on board, teams on board, because we're getting pestered at home by our kids, why is this not gone into recycling, etc. So taking that into the workplace as well helps a lot. But yeah, benchmarking where you are at the moment, use a carbon calculator, get an energy efficiency audit, look at different types of EVs, and see what you can do incrementally.
Yeah.
The last thing I was going to say, and because I'm sure Paul has something to say on this, is that somebody once said to me, we're never going to crack this. But then a very, very good speaker said it's like the Berlin Wall. Everybody thought it would last forever, but they just kept chipping away. And then one day it came down. And I think that's the same with clean growth. Everybody is finally waking up and getting it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've got to. So essentially what you're saying, Richard, we start with an audit. And I never realized that you'd come in. Would you look at the business model as well? How you impacted, your services impacted the environment as well as your premises? It's
the premises mainly, but then also your supply chain and what you're doing globally as well. So if you do lots of international flight, then yes, that will be part of the overall calculation.
Okay, Paul, what's your take?
Yeah, I think Richard has covered off sort of the key elements. Obviously, if you don't know what you're dealing with, then it's difficult to know whether you're making any headway. So certainly try and identify through some basic audits where you can start to make some changes. That might be an internal energy audit for your business premise. It might be looking at some of the behaviors that your company is doing. As you mentioned, Rob, the idea that people will be flying around clearly will have a carbon impact. So how can you might find that flying is a requirement for your business, but in which case you perhaps need to look at offsetting of some of those carbon emissions. And there are companies out there that will provide you with carbon calculators and so on. But in terms of perhaps the wider picture, I would suggest that it's opportunities for things like the New Forest Business Partnership, like the Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, to start to develop some of these things that can become self-help opportunities. I don't think there's any likelihood that small businesses will have the time to develop their knowledge around the technical sides of carbon capture or renewable energies. They need to be pointed in the direction of things that they can sort of identify opportunities quickly. And I think that's up to organisations like myself and the National Park Authority, the local authorities, in connection with organisations such as Richards or maybe the universities, to sort of think about how we can actually make it easy for people to see where that you can start to make some of those differences at your business level. And I think I would say as well, to echo Richard's point, if you talk to your colleagues and staff, depending on the nature of the size of your business, people often have the best ideas, and there are opportunities that certainly we found within our organisation that if you only ask people, they come up with ideas that some of them become quite straightforward and then quickly become behaviours that everybody follows within the company.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Matthew.
Yeah, just thinking, picking up Rob's point about as a small business owner particularly, there are opportunities where we can connect very small businesses with the ability to think through some of these issues. Possibly a carrot and stick method, but maybe not. I mean, for example, we have two significant areas in the New Forest. Tourism, the visitor economy is over £500 million. We are responsible for a lot of traffic, we're responsible for a lot of congestion, and so on and so on. So with our destination marketing organisation and others, we could explore something like what used to be called the Greenleaf scheme, where small businesses not only should, but must become part of something that accredits them. But we also have lots of innovative businesses. We have some world-class businesses here in the Forest. And again, helping them to, from scratch, create products and manufacturing processes that are in tune with their setting in the New Forest seems to be the way to go. So even if it's something as simple as this, to be a member of the New Forest Business Partnership, to be a member of Hampshire Chamber, you have to complete a simple audit that says to be a part of any of these organisations, you are showing you are at least thinking about it. Now, membership organisations who want people to become members might be hesitant about that. But as I think Ross said at the beginning, we haven't got a choice about this. And so the carrot and the stick, which seems to be an appropriate New Forest analogy, might be the way forward.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, three.
But I'll be willing to receive some pushback from anyone who doesn't think it is, but maybe they wouldn't push back.
Well, I know that we've got some great questions coming through on the chat. I'm going to invite Polly and then followed by you, Les, who made some great points on the chat. Polly, would you mind sharing your insight with us?
I don't really have an awful lot of insight. To be honest, we had a sustainability audit of the business just before the first lockdown, working with Nancy Hine from True Horizon, who is a New Forest business. So it's a shame that she's not here. And the reality was, it's kind of the nitty gritty that makes a difference. So we were already using sustainable print methods. We were already using sort of cloud systems for filing rather than paper filing. So all those tiny incremental changes you can make in your business all go towards that bigger change. It's not all about cutting the commute, which is obviously important, and we've all done that anyway at the moment. But it is that kind of speak to the person that does your stationery order and then just look at it and go, is any of this even bloody necessary, or is it just a nice to have? I think there's the smaller changes as well as the huge changes. I've just been reading the Skills for the Green Economy government paper. It's pretty old. I'd imagine it needs a bit of an update, but it looks like there are grants for apprentices. It's a hefty government document, and I've kind of had enough of reading those. But it's probably, I can drop the link to it in the chat if anyone's interested. So for me it was like, yes, there are the big technical challenges, but there are probably just different ways to look at it. Like, for example, if you've got global clients that expect you to be traveling, give them a preferential rate for remote consultancy.
Yeah.
And then it becomes part of your business model, doesn't it? Because you open up that other option, and actually if you cut your travel time, you cut your travel costs, that's your saving anyway. You're not making any less money. It doesn't really impact your bottom line. You're just thinking differently.
No, that's brilliant points, Polly. I think the marginal gains, trying to go for the small things that you can do every day, make a cumulative massive difference. I'll come back to you, Polly. I'm talking about, did you mention Nancy?
Nancy, yeah, from True Horizon.
Yeah, talking about the B Corporation. Perhaps we can talk a little bit about that a bit later on, but I'm going to turn to Les now. Les, would you mind sharing your experience with us?
Yeah, certainly. I'm Les Hewlett. I work for a company called CERT. We're a training provider, mostly at the moment within the smart metering industry. So we're training the guys and girls that go into your house and looking at domestic gas as well. My background prior to that was within technical recruitment, and it was always working in a market where skill shortages were where we kind of operated, and that's how we could add value to companies. So now I've turned more to the light side and trying to help that rather than just trying to find people. It's actually trying to train these individuals as well. So the challenge that we've got at the moment is that there's so much new technology coming through, and I think in 2016 the issue around us getting this green piece moving was probably around technology. Now in 2021, it's more about the people being the constraint. There's somewhere in the region of 250,000 new jobs that are going to be created within this market, as well as reskilling all the current people that we have in it as well, and not a plethora of places to do it. And these are individuals that will need quite specialist training within charging networks and air source heat pumps. It's not difficult to do, but it's circa £2,000 worth of investment per person that each company is going to do. And I was just wondering, I don't really see where the funds are available to kind of establish the infrastructure to enable us to do this. I mean, one of the things that we've come up with is a South Coast Energy Hub. It's in concept stage at the moment. It's a hub where all of this technology will be showcased as one place, as a house where prospective companies can utilize that technology, see the technology live, and actually train in it as well. But it's just a funding phase at this stage, and these companies are going to need it, and they're going to need it pretty quick. Every single company that I'm talking to at the moment is like, I'm going to need 200 EV trainers, EV installers, Les. Where can we go and do it? And there's pockets of places. I suppose my question is, what funds do you see that are available out there for businesses such as ourselves that are actually looking to address this skills crisis that we're potentially looking at?
That's a really good point. Who would like to pick that one up? One for you, Richard.
Thanks, Les. The honest answer is it's difficult. I know we had a conversation a while ago, and we're trying to make introductions to the LEP, etc. But it seems to be dragging its heels. So I think at the moment the LEPs have got the big money, and that's where they will be the conduit for government funds, etc., etc. And I think they're always going to be the best choice. And I think it's finding the right people in the LEP to drive it forward. Obviously, the colleges will be interested as well, as will the universities. But I think it's a collaborative approach. It's pulling all of that together, and it's probably going to be pockets of money from different organisations to make it work, as well as SSE and all the big energy companies, because they're the ones that are going to need this infrastructure to be built and to be maintained. And I think you're absolutely right. There is a massive shortage on it. I mean, we've got people on the Isle of Wight that will not put ground source heat pumps in because they don't know if something goes wrong, who they turn to. So it's not going to go away, this issue.
Well, Polly's posting.
Yes, can I just say, in terms of the Solent LEP, I think that the Solent LEP were the only LEP in the region to include references to natural capital in their local investment plan that they put to government, their means by which they sort of draw down government funding. I think if we can, it's incumbent upon us as authorities and yourselves as businesses to sort of work together. And I see in the chat that there was a suggestion of putting some sort of group together or a focus around some of this work to maybe talk directly to the LEPs. You know, we have within the National Park Authority good links with the Solent LEP in particular, and in fact they've actually contributed funding to the natural capital baseline study that I referred to for Fawley Waterside and for ABP. So they do have funds available for some of this research and evidence work. It's then translating that funding into the sort of thing that Les is looking for, or companies are looking for, in terms of bringing some of that theoretical and that evidence-based work into the business practice. So I think joining together through groups such as this one to bring some of these issues to the LEP. Certainly the LEP attend the New Forest Business Partnership meetings, for example. So we can build that sort of sense of demand that the LEP need to see. I think, you know, sometimes they will perhaps be a little bit removed from some of the smaller businesses, and we need to try and work together to ensure that those small businesses have a collective voice that we can direct at the LEP for exactly these issues.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. I don't know whether you, Sandeep, with your entrepreneurial head on, you please open your mic up and speak to the panel. But you know, seeing an opportunity to pool our collective experience to do something like this, I think would be a very good idea. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your?
Yeah, I was just listening to everybody, and it seems to me that there is a mindset here to do something joint. I mean, this webinar itself is the first collaborative piece, but apart from my own knowledge, because the involvement I have with so many different business support groups and networking, I can't remember the last time I heard a conversation like this take place across the Solent-wide region. Yeah. And I'm not sure if we're raising the profile of this event or this subject matter enough. Yes. And if we've got the Chamber, if we've got the New Forest Business Partnerships, National Parks, Richard, with all his work he's done for many, many years across the region, why haven't we actually done much more about it? And we've got the gathering of those kind of people and the momentum to say, let's do something. Let's actually, as our individual organizations, as joint initiative, let's do something that raises, and we've got plenty of examples by panel members and actually the audience of the things they're doing, but I just don't think people hear about it to give it the relevance or importance.
I think you're absolutely right, Sandeep, and you've hit a really good discussion. I'm sure Ross will have a view on this, but I know that through the LEP that we're working with Ross and his organization and others on the peer-to-peer programs to support people through the pandemic and out the other side. A green focused peer-to-peer might well be a really good way, slightly enlarged, to carry on these conversations. And I'm sure that each one of us on the call have got examples of, we've got one at the moment of a client that could help Les out almost immediately, I would suggest, with you know, training some of these skills. Ross, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I agree 100%. I think, you know, this is, as I said, at the start, a community of practice, or the start of one. But it's quite true. Sandeep's right. You're right, Rob, that basically businesses do need to come together and work together. This is the best time to do something like this, because we're all having to pivot our businesses anyway. And really, the only solution is to pivot your business towards net zero. That's one of the key ingredients in it. And I do know that Solent LEP, and I know that Enterprise M3 LEP as well, would, right across the whole of Hampshire, would very much like to work with businesses. Whether they've got the funding for a theme-based peer-to-peer, I don't know, but I think it's a very, very good idea, and we should be suggesting it to them, because you know, we have amongst our strategies that we're working with our peer groups a range of issues that they're tackling, but we should put this front and center for them. This should be the shape that around which they are building their business opportunity. Yeah. Innovation is tough and difficult in itself anyway.
Yes.
But if you've got a theme, if you've got, I think, as Polly's been saying, if you've actually got a policy, a basis upon which you're building. You're going to bring with you your clients, you're going to bring with you your staff, you're going to, you know, bring with you everybody who shares that. It's no longer a belief system, it's a certainty. We've basically got to just make sure that businesses are, as I said, making it a thread running through everything that they're doing.
Yes. So Heidi's put some nice comments in the chat there. Heidi, would you mind sharing some of your experiences with us, what you're up to?
Hi, sorry, I've got small children in the background, so I apologise if there is a bit of entertainment. So I work for an HR consultancy, so our role is to go across, we've got about 250 clients on the South Coast, and mostly small businesses that don't have in-house sustainability expertise. And the main reason I came along today really is to try and learn something so that I can help signpost those businesses in the right direction as and when I come across the opportunity, because like I mentioned in my comment, you know, that leaders have, or small businesses have so many things that they need to be experts in, that sustainability tends to just drop off because it's always a burning platform. It's always the immediate need, especially when they're going through the kind of drama that we've been through over the last year. So it's really important that we are able to signpost people in the right direction and just make sure that we're raising sustainability on the kind of yeah, I work with a lot of leadership teams on strategy and things, and making sure that we elevate the strategy of sustainability is really important. So I've just come along to learn today a little bit and try and find some places to signpost and learn a bit more about what we're doing in the local area.
Great, thanks, Heidi. It's fantastic work you're doing. You know, from a small business perspective, I know precisely where you're coming from. There's lots to think about. I want to turn to Graham. Graham's put a really good point about funding charges in the chat. Graham, would you like to share that with us? If Graham's still here, otherwise I'll do it for you.
I think for a lot of people, the cost, and particularly in this environment, people will just look at the cost. And so far, when we talk about green funding, we've only seen very large projects, and it's all to do with the corporates, which helps. But really, to meet things like the Paris Agreement, everyone needs to start making a contribution now. Sandy made a good point. It's all about people being aware. But the point I just wanted to raise, it's worth challenging your funders and your banks, because they might be a wee bit more flexible, might be able to get better interest rates, because they're being challenged by the regulators to, you know, to lend more money for these type of projects. And not just at the very high level, but, you know, right down to small and, you know, the SME style. So if it's a message I could give across to people, it's worth challenging them and ask them if they're working with their responsibilities, which they've all signed up for, like with the United Nations, you know, principles of banking.
Sure. No, it's a really good point, Graham. Now, Alan, with your background in your publication, Alan, if you wanted to address the panel, it's almost providing you make things easy all in one place, almost a roadmap where we're starting from all the right people in the right room to ask the right questions of, to support a business to, you know, take advantage for all the right reasons of what we're discussing. So Alan, what's your take on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, with the Business Magazine, and this isn't a shameless plug for what we do at the Business Magazine, but, you know, we direct our whole publication is directed at C-level execs in our target area. This is the area that the Business Magazine focuses on, our region. So if we could, you know, with these work groups, or with this particular group, if we could get a headline sponsor for a piece, then we could create almost like a forum that we could put out in the digital magazine and through the websites, etc., to help, you know, spread the word. Yes. And we did a really successful piece on Brexit in the last publication. It's like a digital forum, so we get comment from all the leaders within the industry and piece it together as a like almost like a round table on paper. Yes. Even though it's digital now, it's not on paper at the moment because of the way that we can't deliver the magazines because they'll go to businesses, but sure, we can still push it and get it out to the market. And it's just a better way, you know, a bigger way of being able to spread the word. Unfortunately, I've got to get somebody to cover the cost at the top, but yes, it would be a nice thing for us to be able to do, I think.
Oh, that's a really good point, Alan. I know, Les, I mentioned a client that we had that's currently rewiring the entire south of England for digital fibre, and that he's already looking at, he's already created his own academy, for example, to train fibre optic engineers, taking people who used to work in places like nail bars, taking that level of dexterity, transferable skill, and placing it within a completely different industry, and absolutely loving it. They're flying with the second tranche of people have just graduated from his school. That's a local business in Leigh-on-the-Solent, and they're already looking at EV charging points and power rerouting. And I know that he's very keen on everything that we're talking about. So we have within our network the right people to say, Alan, to support an article perhaps, but also get behind more of a working group.
And we could even make it. We could even make it a regular initiative if we could, so that it's a regular thing of stuff that's going out on a regular basis, because it's all about just continually putting out message. I mean, there's a load of people here that are involved with marketing and branding, and everyone knows that when something's out of mind or out of sight, it's out of mind. You've got to keep stuff at the forefront of mind all the time, otherwise message gets lost.
Yes.
So we've got to just keep this going.
Yeah, for sure. And Paul, you make a really good point. We have a vehicle perhaps that already exists that could tell us a little bit more about that, about the Green Halo partnership.
Yeah, so this is something that we convened about 3 or 4 years ago now, I think. And with a number of different partners, we worked around trying to bring the importance of natural capital to sort of the understanding of business, if you like. And we have over 100 different companies sort of across the area that initially signed up to this partnership. And there was a lot of good work done around bringing in things like the local economic partnership. And it was through them really through the work of the Green Halo, that I think we succeeded in getting the Solent LEP in particular to look at the natural capital opportunities, partly through struggling to get resource and partly through being diverted into other things. The Green Halo partnership hasn't been able to be as sort of out in the public sphere as it might have been in the last year or so. But if we could perhaps pick up the enthusiasm that certainly is on the group here, and the sort of things that Alan was talking about finding ways to keep it in the public eye, then we have that group already. Yes, we have limited resources for it, but we've got the web pages, we've got people who know that Green Halo partnership exists, we've got some big players involved in that, as well as some small and micro businesses as well. So if people are happy to have a look at the website, we are due to recruit, hopefully very soon, what we're going to call a Net Zero with Nature program manager, and this will be sort of looking to try and bring a bit of impetus to this Green Halo partnership work. So within a couple of months we should have that extra resource in post. If there's the demand from local businesses and the sort of things that was it Heidi was saying about the need to sort of signpost small businesses and provide the opportunity to share best practice, to have particular examples of where it has made a difference for local business, whether it's saved them money or delivered their carbon budget, or just enabled them to pivot their business into a different way. I think that's certainly something that we could look to do, bring the Green Halo partnership back into sort of a really active partnership again, which it has undoubtedly sort of slid backwards a little, but these things sort of tend to go in waves anyway. So it's there. We don't need to reinvent that particular wheel, is really what I was sort of trying to say there.
Yes, no, that's a very good point, Paul. Richard, have you got a perspective?
Excuse me, I've got to drop off to another meeting, but I would love to catch up with some more of you that we can potentially look at working with us and seeing what we can do.
Alan, put all your details in the chat, and you definitely will be in touch.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody. Cheers now.
Richard.
Basically, just building on what Paul said there. I think one of the problems of green, clean, etc., is there are so many different organisations, and I'm part of the problem, not one of the solutions, unfortunately. I mean, I think it is finding the people, the organisations that you can align to best of all. I mean, one thing I would like to say is that a lot of businesses don't look at the green solution because there's forms to fill, there's bureaucracy to go through. So what we've done with the Isle of Wight is they've basically done all the form filling for their hotels and guest houses, etc. So they come into us already pre-scored almost. So we just know it's a no-brainer. It's just going to sail through. It takes away all the pain for the hotels and the guest houses. And within 6 months or so, there's going to be a network of charging points all over the island. So those hotels will gather together, work together to promote them as the green island, encourage people to come over in EVs, etc., etc. So they're not only increasing their business model, but they're also reducing their some of their overheads as well. So it's a sort of win-win. And by having these sort of pre-populated application forms, it's taken away all that horrible. I mean, I ran a business for 15 years. I used to hate bidding for grants or funds, etc., because it used to take forever. So, yeah,
that's a superb case study, which sort of demonstrates all of the challenges that you have in getting these sort of issues on people's radars with everything else that's going on around them running their businesses, and being able to take that away is a real benefit for sure. Matthew, with being a business owner in the New Forest, what's your experience been in connecting with some of these services?
It is part of the challenge, is to know where that one-stop shop is, and I think that's something that I need to discuss further with Paul, is how we can develop connections so that your average small business can go to one place and be signposted from there.
Yes,
there are lots of good examples around the New Forest, and for example, Maurizio, who's on the call, is a fantastic small hotel in Brockenhurst that's really leading the way with environmental action and what they're doing for their guests and with their guests. And of course, perhaps using some of those examples of businesses that have managed to do it and make it a priority. And actually the fact that it's not all about cost, because in the long run, there is a benefit. The bottom line is a more important benefit than just money. Yes. So sharing good practice, sharing good examples, putting people in touch with each other, it's part of what we're trying to do as a partnership. And Paul and I and Sandy will discuss that further as to how we can do that, as well as the point that's been made that there are a number of people who, if they'd known about this today, ought to have been on the call as well. So it's all about connections.
Yes, for sure. I think that for my observation is that the focus has shifted. When we were looking at our strategy post-COVID, it was looking at organizations that were operating in the green economy, new innovation technology field, that's where the growth and innovation was going to come from. So how did we prepare ourselves to work in that marketplace, not for one, drive more revenue from different sources, but also at the same breath, apply for things like B Corporation status. I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but a stamp of approval from a sustainability ethical standpoint that you are actually a good organization with the right values at your heart, especially when you're recruiting bright young or bright people to your organization. They'll probably look a little bit further than your website to see examples of your values and actions. So I do think it's moved up the list, and for people like myself as a business owner to really start taking it a little bit more seriously, dare I say it. So any thoughts from our guests? Please open your mics and speak to our panel. Share your ideas with us. I know that Les, you may well be familiar with the Kickstarter program, and Ross and his team are doing a brilliant job from the Hampshire Chamber of Commerce perspective to put people like us together with bright, our younger generation, to develop these skills. Is that something that you've pursued?
It is, yes. Yeah, we've had some success, but there's been a number of hoops and tape to run through as well. So it's something we're building on as we speak, really. But if anybody's got any extra insight into how to unlock that Kickstarter potential, then do please let us know how we can best utilise it.
So
I'd be happy, Rob, to sort of just give a little bit of commentary. You're absolutely right, Les. It's been fun, hasn't it? There's no doubt that the bureaucracy coming out of the DWP is a challenge to anybody. And I do know that we started working with New Forest Business Partnership and other partners around putting in Kickstart applications in September. And it has taken a little while in that these are no excuses, because it's been happening to every single intermediary organization. But basically we help the businesses to put in their application. You know, if you're until very recently, if you're employing less than 30 staff, then you have to go through an intermediary, and we've been providing that service. But the thing is that since then, DWP has gradually developed their systems and their processes. They've taken nearly 6 months to do it, but they say that is extremely fast for a government department, quote unquote, which of course we know is true. So I'm not being critical of that fact, but it does mean that, yes, the intermediaries have now got their grant forms completed. They've got their contracts in place, and those jobs now are being finalized and put up on the DWP system. And when we said that's really great news, how long will it now take for them to be published on that system? They said 3 weeks. And so it's always a timescale involved in all of these things. But I do believe that we've seen 1 or 2 jobs being advertised and being filled. And so we know that the thing is happening now. And we've just all suffered that sort of time delay. Having said that, it is a fantastic scheme. It provides, 6 months of good quality experience for young people. It provides fully paid for at minimum wage salaries, and also £1,500 for the company to be able to provide the kind of resources needed to take on that person. And we as an intermediary are very willing and happy to help any business that wants to do it. So don't be put off, because then if you're doing it now, the 6 months has passed, and I think we're now into a far more rapid turnaround situation. It will still take a month or 2 before that position gets filled, but then you'll have somebody there that can be fully committed to doing some kind of new innovation, new development in your business. These young people want challenges, and we can help find the right people. There's an awful lot of unemployed talent out there, 18 to 24-year-olds coming out with good qualifications, and are exactly the kind of people that would want to take on green innovation challenges. So I would say it's a perfect path. So get it back in touch with me, and I hope I've encouraged you all to do it. I think it will prove to be quite an achievement, I think, over the next 6 or 9 months, when we start to see what's come through that program and the kind of things that those young people have achieved for businesses. I think it'll be something we can all celebrate. So go for it.
Sandeep.
Just wanted to mention, leading on from the Kickstart, actually, perhaps we need to get back even to the basics, because we should engage with the schools and people like Sonnet Careers Enterprise Company and raise this issue and the priority of this. If there's a skill shortage, start even earlier by raising it and putting it on the agenda in our conversations with schools and colleges and higher education. And Sonnet, I'm an enterprise advisor for the Careers and Enterprise Company, but I'm also having this conversation where I live with the local school where I'm a governor, and they've got that green project sort of strategy in place as well. So this conversation by us business owners with our connections and our local contacts and networks, we should start raising that profile ourselves.
Yeah, for sure, Sandeep. Katie, did you want to say something? Well, that's a really good point, Sandeep. I suppose with about 15 minutes left, we've had a great discussion, lots of threads being spun How do we combine them into one? What's the next step, do we think, to take this forward?
Katie wants to
Throw it
speak.
out there.
Put her mic off. Katie.
No, I didn't particularly wish to speak, but I will. Thank you. I'm not a business as such. I specialize in languages. I'm a lecturer, but in my free time, I'm a tour guide for Southampton. When the cruise liners are in, we have about 5, 6 a day, sometimes with 7,000 passengers in each one of them. And I will take them to Winchester or Southampton or Stonehenge. So I see things from the visitor's point of view, and I do everything in 3 languages. I love the New Forest. I take people to the New Forest. I sell the New Forests. And I've decided to join this group today for inspiration it was all about the New Forest for me today. And I was thinking about taking people, doing things in the greener way. So using electric bikes, the new bikes,
Yes.
instead of putting everyone in a coach, 40 people, 50 Americans in a coach.
Yeah.
I was thinking, let's change all that. People need to get fresh air. They need to do exercise. Maybe there'll be families with children. So I was thinking about doing tours with bicycle in the New Forest and stopping in a pub.
Sounds great.
So that the local people it's a winner for the locals. It's people getting fresh air and doing exercise. And you can see things in a different way. You'll see animals in the New Forest that you wouldn't otherwise see in a coach or on the top of a green bus. So sorry, I come from a different angle completely. Not business as such, but I'm trying to help everyone in the city. And this is my own free time at the weekend.
Oh, that's a really good point, Katie. Sam, did you want to just say something, Sam?
Hi, yeah, thanks first of all for putting this on. I only actually saw it advertised yesterday, so I've come into it really late, and I'm coming at it from a different perspective than a lot of other people on here. So I work for the Environment Agency as a catchment coordinator for the New Forest, and I sit on the New Forest Catchment Partnership, which is co-hosted by the National Park and by the Freshwater Habitats Trust. And effectively what we do is we're looking to work with partners to improve water quality, to get sort of multiple benefits basically out of projects, which can include carbon sequestration, reducing nitrate and so on into the water environment, protected habitats and species and so on. But what we haven't done necessarily as well, and I think there's a really great opportunity to do, is to sort of find those multiple benefits with the business community. So I was really keen to hear about some of this. We have got some projects that we're sort of starting to run now, which I can see some overlaps with. One of which is called Wilder for Water, and it's looking at the impact of recreation and tourism on the water environment, looking at how we could help, for example, campsites, but also potentially other businesses to reduce their impact. It was interesting to hear what was sort of spoken about the LEAF sort of standard around businesses, and particularly sort of business around hospitality, which might be an area. So some definite overlaps there.
Yes.
We're also, there's another project that we're looking to hopefully fund from next year called Blue Horizons, and it's looking at around the edge of the New Forest. We're sort of conscious that actually the water environment in the centre is pretty much fantastic, but we're trying to grow that out as a catchment partnership. Looking at habitat recreation, changes in land use, tree planting, potential, looking at carbon sequestration again as well as part of that. So at the moment it's kind of scoping, but looking for wider investment into that project. So I think there could potentially be an overlap into that going ahead around sort of,
Yes.
sort of opportunities for carbon sequestration. So really interesting to hear about it. I just wanted to say hello to people and make them aware of who we are and what we do. Please, if anyone wants to get in touch with me afterwards, then please do. But that was it. But thank you for putting that on.
Well, thanks, Sam. Thanks for that. Your vital contribution. It's got so many different perspectives. I think Polly, who's summed it up brilliantly on the chat, what next steps might look like, which involves totally different perspectives. Sam, Katie, for example, your electric bikes, I think is a brilliant idea, and put together with other other partners in in an event which brings different perspectives together in one place with a clear agenda, as Polly says, may well be the next step. Heidi, did you want to come in?
No, I just thought I'd come back on video because the kids are away. But Dorset Growth Hub did a media week a few months ago, and every day they had a short Zoom session that was free, and then they had some guest contributors, and it was promoted across the whole region, and people could come along and learn something new about marketing design or media every day. And actually perhaps kind of looking at Polly's idea and seeing if we could do something like that would be really, really great. And I'd be happy to help in any way I can with promotion or with the skills or looking at business strategy or whatever, because I think it's something really important that we need to get on the agenda.
No, for sure. Thank you. Thanks, Heidi. Polly, I'm gonna, if you're still there, Polly.
Yeah, I am.
Come and explain your idea, next steps.
I always do these things, don't I? Basically, I think there's a lot to learn from the Net Zero Carbon Summit that the National Consumer Federation held last January that I attended. And there's a similar thread. There's kind of too many people trying to discuss too many things that actually probably need a team of people working on for 10 years. So you're kind of scratching the surface of all of the different elements that feed into meeting these net zero carbon targets. But what did work really well was a full day that was very much split down, and it was from consumer. So there was someone there from Trading Standards, there was someone there from Bayes, there was someone there from Trustmark, Parity Projects. So getting all the industry speakers, Green Finance Institute, to speak, but then holding after each key note speaker, there was a panel discussion where other people came and enriched the topic, and then it opened it out to the forum and the people that were there. Yes. So what that led to was a much more in-depth discussion using multiple experts on very specific topics. So we spoke about green finance for like 2 hours. It needs to be in depth in order for people's understanding to move on, and for there then to be actions that we can all go away and individually work to.
Yes, no, totally get that. Are you volunteering yourself, Polly, to put the agenda together with some?
Well, I'd be happy to have a chat with Ross or with whoever else. I think bringing Nancy in on it, because she does these environmental audits, so she understands from an SME standpoint, or I know there's people here as well, she understands from an SME standpoint those pinch points. She understands the quick wins, but she also understands the common pitfalls, I guess. So getting as many heads around a table as possible to really then deep dive into those areas rather than what we think. Sure. I think that would probably get us furthest along.
Yes,
that makes sense.
It does, yeah, Polly. Ross, any thoughts on that, Ross?
Well, 100%. Very happy to get involved. I think we've got to take forward these things, Polly. I think we've got to build a community here that works together and actually provides leadership and support, and the two being of equal importance. And so, yeah, 100%, Polly. Let's talk about it after this session.
And I think Jack from Basingstoke Council as well. I know there's probably loads of other people, but he's quite good at lobbying. So I think we need people like that in the team.
Indeed, 100%.
Okay, well let's take that as an action then, Polly. And we've got a session on the 2nd of March, which is also with the New Forest business partnership. So that's the next session. That's a good month away. Any final points before we close? Got a couple of minutes left. If not, I will do a very quick summary and then hand over to Ross. So, we started this with me talking about my business, I'd be very keen to have an event or working with an organization in inverted commas that pre-exists, the Halo, for example, that could provide a one-stop shop for me, make things easier to access and execute all in one place. As a small business, we've been reviewing all of our services over the period and taking a completely fresh look at all the services that are provided for us and thinking about it very differently, not only to reduce costs, but also to get a better level of service and a better, lower impact on the environment. So I think it's very much of the moment, and organizations like the B Corporation, and I know there's others that exist that help you go through that process, and some of the actions that Richard's done with the great work he's done in the Isle of Wight, I think would have real resonance for me and probably other small business owners. So probably spoken a little bit too much, but Ross, would you like to close the session for us?
Firstly, thanks very much, Rob, for chairing the session so well as ever, and thank you to Mission Performance. Thank you also to New Forest Business Partnership for bringing this together. We have another event, as I put in the chat, on the 2nd of March, which is placing people at the heart of business, and that's again in partnership with New Forest Business Partnership. So please come to that and tell everybody about it. We are certainly going to take these matters forward. This for the Chamber of Commerce is a key matter for the next few decades. This is what's going to shape business opportunity, shape innovation in this country. And we are, we're a country which is, undergoing change. And this is about making it a positive change and placing this country at the forefront. Certainly, in a strange way, I mean, the good thing is we seem to have, and I say seem to have, a conservative government that is totally dedicated to the net zero and the green issues. And November in Glasgow is a very important date for us all. And I think, as far as we can tell, we are going to be there right behind policies that are really going to be positive for business and positive for the environment. So as a Chamber of Commerce, we're committed to that. I ask all of you that are interested in working with us just to very simply email me, and I will bring this together. And I'll take Paul's very kind offer up to make sure that we don't reinvent the wheel, and that when we bring this thing together, it is about convening the knowledge, convening the expertise, so that the businesses can access it easily. There's all kinds of opportunities for funding and finance and grants and everything else out there. We've got to get those into the hands of businesses for doing the right things as soon and as quickly as possible. We're here to help with that. But as I say, our role is to provide that platform to convene those solutions and to get them in the hands of businesses, and then celebrate the successes that come about. This is the start. Every time we bring a Chamber of Solutions together, we are provided with some action points and some activity, but I've never been more enthused about those than I have on this session today. So thank you very much for everything that you've done, and hold me to account to take it forward and to make sure that the Chamber and your voices are at the centre of it. Thanks very much, and take care, everyone. Rob.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Paul, Richard, Matthew, for your input. And thank you everyone for attending. We look forward to seeing you on the next sessions, and hopefully take these ideas into something tangible that will help us all become the businesses and that we need to exploit the great opportunities that lay ahead of us. So thank you once again. All take care of yourselves, and see you again on this channel, hopefully sooner than the 2nd of March, where we can put together this agenda, Polly, and really start to make progress. So thank you all, and see you again soon.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Ross. Thanks all.